this is an interesting concept. Greenwashing. What is that, people? I had no idea about this until now. And yep, greenwashing is the process of conveying false impression of providing misleading information about how a company's products are more environmentally sound than they really are. We have three very important articles that I would like you to check really quickly. In the first one, the article explains how climate denial still exists, and now the narratives is taking a different approach. Now it has been morphing to something more complex, and that is harder to counter. For example, doomerism, the idea that we can do nothing about climate change and we are doomed, so there is nothing else to do. It reminds me of some religious people talking about why we shouldn't do anything about this. The second one, it's very interesting because it's about nuclear energy and how some people are trying to push for nuclear energy over solar energy, saying that nuclear is more, it's better, it's safe, and all of that. And they forget how solar energy doesn't produce these terrible waste that you have to store in a specific place in order to avoid contaminating the whole environment. And the third one is about blue hydrogen, a type of energy source that it's a process for making hydrogen by using methane, and which sadly produces a lot of contamination in the way how it is produced. And of course, I want to start with the first one right away about this doomerism. And also, I would like to give a big shout out to Climate Bird, an AI platform that expose the ways in which companies selectively cherry pick climate risk information, incorporate climate financial disclosures. And this leads to several examples that I will mention later about many companies, including Coca-Cola. Yeah, I'm not drinking Coca-Cola right now. Maybe I am. How they are, and many more. I will mention them later. How they give you this specific information, or they say we are doing all of this to help the environment, and they hide what they are really doing. So yeah, that was my information, my introduction, guys. What do you think? I would like to start with Cindy's opinion about this.
Yes, Cynthia. Cindy? What do you got, Cynthia? Cindy, what do you got?
Shame on you,
Yeah, I
Johnny.
have two things. First of all, a news came out last night in the French news that the European Commission is thinking about uh, preventing any importation from countries that participate in the deforestation. So, yeah, they're proposing a law that would uh, prevent the entry on the European territory to any company or any country that has an impact on deforestation. And I think
That's
that's a good
awesome.
thing. Yeah. I hope it will go through. Uh, I don't think it will happen tomorrow because
Sure.
European Commission is big
Well,
thing.
well, there are a lot of good things happening, but let's keep it to this. We're talking about specifically climate change misinformation, and unless that's misinformation, out looking at the article that we've got here. I mean, I did a little bit of research. This is not unusual. Um, theconversation.com surveyed more than 1,700 adults living in the UK and found that almost half of the sample were unable to correctly identify 50% of fake climate change news headlines. And almost half, 44%, of all respondents were unaware of how often they encountered misinformation online, suggesting that people need guidance and how to spot misinformation. Working with YouGov and the conversation, they asked 1722 people to read 5 real and 4 fake news headlines about climate change. Almost half mistakenly believed that, quote, scientists disagree on the cause of climate change. And 35% incorrectly thought that scientists believe the sun has impacted Earth's rise in temperature. Mateo, you mentioned Climate Bert exposing that this cherry picking. Did you have any examples of the cherry picking that went on, Mateo?
Oh, I I didn't get any of that, but I because I was going to link that to the nuclear energy thing.
Oh,
For
I see.
example, yeah, because I've seen this a lot. I've seen very smart people defending nuclear energy. You go to Facebook and there are pages that are promoting nuclear energy because, yeah, they talk about how now processors are way better than what happened in Chernobyl, and those
Yeah.
accidents are not going to happen. And they talk
Well,
about them. Oh,
yeah.
I was
Well,
going to say they talk
I
about the
want to
amount of
talk about.
energy to produce, and they
Go
don't
ahead.
talk about the waste. So that was my
Yeah.
example.
Well, okay. That's very relevant. Okay. That's true. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're talking about the nuclear energy before we're finished talking about the
Mm.
misinformation, but you hit it on the head.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. There's a lot of misinformation about nuclear energy, and that does directly relate to the next segment. But Nate, did you have anything to say about the misinformation part of it? The
Well,
the the
yeah.
greenwashing.
You know what the first rule of Dunning-Kruger Club is, don't you, Johnny?
No, what is it?
The first rule of Dunning-Kruger Club is you don't know you're in
That's
Dunning-Kruger Club.
that's right. You don't know.
That's why you can't spot the fake headlines, my friend.
That's true.
They're all meeting in a
Yeah.
basement to
Yeah,
pour over fictitious headlines and shit
true.
that Procter and Gamble just cooked up.
The I think it was in the conversation.com. We'll have the link in the description. Um, they talked about different approaches to on how policymakers, organizations, communicators, and individuals can help identify and counter climate change information. Let me back up a little bit. Let me say this: I have some experience in environmental law. It's been an interest of mine for some time, and I remember when I first got involved in it, the conservatives who were in the pocket of big oil were like, "Oh yeah, it's not happening. It's just weather patterns. It's just more clouds. It's just nonsense." All right, ignoring what the scientific consensus says. Then now they're saying, "Oh, but it's sure there is a change, but it's not from human beings." And then others are saying there's a change and there's human beings and we can do something about it. Technology is going to save the day. It's not by cutting back, it's by new technology, new innovation. And others are saying there's nothing we can do. We're just going to have to ride it out. All right. A lot of misinformation. I think they keep on backing up. They keep on getting painted into a corner and they keep on changing the tune. And they realize that by the time something actually happens and life starts being negatively affected, they'll be out of office. They'll be long gone. But we can
Life
vote them
has
out of
And
office,
they're rich, so
and
they
they're
don't
rich.
care.
We can vote them.
They're not gonna starve or
Yeah,
die. They don't give a shit.
we can vote them out of office sooner if we can get the people out there to actually pay attention to what the science says. And so, what do they say? So this suggested different approaches on how we can get the information out there. One of them: deploy online intelligence research to help identify the false narratives. You see a lot of stuff like that. You see algorithms that are pointing out fake news, right?
I
Swift
know. Yes.
takedowns of climate change misinformation on social media. We saw it with COVID. We saw it with the election. Let's get it out there with regard to climate change and the different effects of the various energy sources. Pre-bunking, which I really thought was fun. Running countermeasure campaigns and pre-bunking, which is like, okay, this is a narrative. Before you've heard the narrative, let's hear what the actual science says and get people, I don't want to say primed, but at least conversant in the way that the science works and what the discoveries are. Specialized training, teaching people how to fact check. That's the biggest thing. We've talked about this a bunch of times.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest
Definitely.
things is inequality and poor education. You know, I think I mentioned this before. I stalk a very proudly ignorant friend of mine from a long time ago, and he just spits out all this stuff. He's towing the party line. He is very clearly being led by whatever the media wants him to believe, and it's whatever is new. He's there too. Um, and so I would say he's probably very poorly educated on the issues, how to spot bad, unreliable news sources. And so let's, I think exploring this, promoting these policies, teaching the people around you, engaging in these conversations. With that said, investing in educational programs. No one wants to spend money, but they should be spending money on education because I think it reaps a lot more than is sown. Now let's talk about the nuclear article, please. Mateo, do you have anything
Oh,
about the nuclear article that you wanted to add?
Well, I was going to link the thing of the nuclear article towards all the companies that
Yes.
have been lying about the stuff.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
I will mention Volkswagen. They were found cheating about the emission of their vehicles. So that is one
Mhm.
example of how these huge companies are lying instead of, and this is not, I wouldn't call it cherry picking. It's just lying, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. They
Nestle
got
released
busted
a
for that.
state. Yeah, of course. Nestle in 2018 released a statement saying that it had ambitions for its package to be 100% recyclable by 2025.
Mhm.
They have done nothing to do that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
they have done nothing to help consumers recycle their products or anything.
Right.
Coca Cola, you know what? They are blaming, yeah, I'm looking at you, Coca Cola. They are blaming the customers. They say they are not going to stop producing plastic bottles because customers demand them. It's popular with customers, therefore, they are not stopping to use them. Starbucks, there was this huge campaign with turtles and all of that. Well, Starbucks started a strawless lead, but the lead now has more plastic. And when people pointed that out, they said, "Oh yeah, but that plastic is a different type of plastic that can be recycled." And yeah, only 9% of plastic is recycled around the world. So they are
Hmm.
doing nothing, and they are doing things even worse. And as I was talking, so this is going to be linked to the nuclear thing
Thank
because,
you.
yeah, sorry, because
Please.
companies are not totally honest. They are always creating these narratives that you mentioned. They are creating huge campaigns, and I have seen very smart people who work in energy, telling me, no, the thing of the solar panels, it's awful because they use a lot of space, but nuclear energy is going to use a very small amount of space. And as I mentioned before, nuclear waste. Yeah, maybe there are ways how we can store that without polluting, but with solar energy, you're not producing any waste at all. There may be some things that are not
Well,
as good about solar energy, but not producing waste is the
Well,
best thing it has.
I think
Yeah,
there's
Nate?
more room for nuance in this conversation than the
agreed.
article suggests, because
Yeah.
it's like these guys are trying to get nuclear energy classified as quote unquote green, right?
Right.
And
Oh
I think
yeah.
we can all agree that there's a spectrum of hue when it comes to the greenness of producing power, right? Like
Yeah.
coal is at the bottom, okay? Then maybe natural gas, and maybe nuclear power, and then we've got, wind and solar, and a beautiful utopia where everybody grows up happy and
Yeah.
whatnot, right? So
Right.
I think this article and this approach is really robbing the real conversation here. I think it's kind of misleading and taking us in the wrong way. we
Yeah.
we just want to get away from using fossil fuels and get companies to actually do something of note and of significance. Like you were talking about doomerism and how folks think that it's too late and there's nothing we can do. I half agree, but I think there's a lot we could do, but I do think there's a lot we won't do.
Right. I think Nate, you hit it on the head as far as the shades of green. What they're ignoring, what everyone keeps ignoring about nuclear power in this avenue is um, they're ignoring the life cycle of the fuel cell,
Yeah.
and from mining all the way to storage. I
And
know that there are things, always ever things in production to try to get um, to try to find a permanent solution. And I've actually linked it will be in the description, but I've got it in my notes, world-nuclear.org information regarding the storage and disposal of radioactive waste. It's not a temporary solution. It's a solution that we have to find for the rest of the history of life on Earth, or for at least human life, because this stuff will never go away. Now, most of it is low radiation waste, but even low radiation waste has a long impact, very far-reaching impact, and the steps that you have to go to make sure that it doesn't contaminate the environment is rather extensive. And um, until those structures are in place, that infrastructure is in place, it's just simply not a green. Now, Is it better than wood-fired stoves? If everyone used wood-fired stoves, you put coal at the bottom. I put wood fire at the bottom. And there
Sure.
are places in the
Sure.
world where that's a significant amount. It's a lot of particulate matter and it's a lot of air quality issues. But coal is certainly bad for air quality and for contaminants in the air, water, and in the soil. But talking about that, we can move on to this idea about blue hydrogen. Did anyone else look at this blue hydrogen stuff they're talking about here?
Oh, may I quote one last thing before we go with blue hydrogen? I want
I
to
want to
quote.
move on. I want to move on to blue hydrogen, Mateo.
Okay, go ahead.
So talk us about blue hydrogen here. What is it? Can anyone explain to us, to the audience, what blue hydrogen is?
Is it like a blue angel? Is it anything
Oh,
like that?
It's very similar to a blue angel. No, it's
Okay.
I think Mateo, you started talking about it earlier. You jumped ahead, but could you talking about greenwashing and talking about misinformation, talking about what we've heard about blue hydrogen, you started talking about it. Can you walk us through it a little bit?
yeah, blue hydrogen, as I mentioned, is an energy source that involves a process for making hydrogen by
Yeah,
using methane as a natural gas.
yeah,
I'm sure you know how that impacts our environment.
right,
So they are trying to label this as clean green energy,
right.
but sadly, it can, according to let me quote.
Hmm.
Stanford University and Cornell, the
Hmm.
researchers believe that it may harm the climate even more than fossil fuel. Sorry.
Yeah,
Why? Because the process to make blue hydrogen takes a huge amount of energy.
right.
Therefore, this has to be produced by burning more natural gas. And methane is a very powerful green gas. It is like 1,000, not 1,000, 100, sorry, 100 times stronger
Mhm.
as an atmospheric warming agent than carbon dioxide when first emitted.
Mhm.
So this is not a real solution. This is even worse. They want to say that they can produce blue hydrogen in a green way, but I think we don't have the technology to do that. We are just creating more pollution.
Well, what I had found in my research was this blue hydrogen has a nice name, doesn't it? But you're right; it uses methane, it uses greenhouse gases to generate the hydrogen. True green uh, hydrogen would be an example of using solar, like you were talking about, using solar, using wind, and other means to generate the hydrogen. It's not an intermediate step. It's not a step on the way to that clean hydrogen. It seems like it's an offshoot. It seems like what this is a wrong turn in Albuquerque, if we could use Bugs Bunny as an example. But it also relies upon, from what I'm researching, carbon sequestration technology, which is to a lesser degree the problem that they had with nuclear waste storage. It's like you've got to sequester this carbon somewhere. Oh, well, we can't let it leak out, but things happen.
Yep, of
So
course.
once again, I mean, I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good here, but like it really needs to be good, not just a greenwashed good solution.